Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the old girlfriend rig, 2014 Jeep Compass. This thing's got 133-ish thousand on it. It's actually in really good shape overall. I did just detail it, so it's all nice and clean, or pretty clean anyway. There's really no major body rust. Lighting's gonna suck at the start of this video, guys. I do apologize for that. But, yeah, there's really no body rust on it. If we pop the doors open, really nothing too crazy going on there. Pretty good for a northeastern car its whole life. Jersey for a bit, and then Maine, and now upstate New York. It's a fresh coat of wax hiding under the frost. But we're driving it today because it needs a new windshield. See where that cracked right there. So we're going to get that taken care of. And I actually wanted to look. Yeah, these wipers aren't bad. Okay. We're going to get that taken care of. And then we need to get tires on it very soon. So I'm also working on that. These tires, these Firestone weather grips, I got to be honest with you, don't really like them. I feel like they never had the traction they should have had. And they lasted literally half their mileage warranty. And God knows this car doesn't have a ton of power. And we're not exactly drifting in the thing. So, not a great tire. I would not recommend. But 2.4 liter 4-cylinder. We're going to go for a drive. And we'll talk more about it. This is the Latitude interior package. So, it's actually got a pretty good amount of features for a more kind of base model car. We, of course, got the radar detection device hooked up because we're a little bit addicted to that. Although in this beast, we can probably get away without it. We'll get the lights on. They are not automatic headlights, even for a 2014, which is kind of surprising. Just an old school radio deck, nothing too fancy. So, you know, what is this thing like? So here's a couple perspectives, right? As a car guy, as your average Joe, and those are kind of the two obviously very different perspectives when you're evaluating something like this, right? And you know, I think that's kind of the frame of mind we'll take with this video. So, as your average Joe, this car, you know, relatively roomy, you know, hatchback, SUV type car, back seats, really not too awful bad for putting people back there. You know, decent front seat room. It's really like not that bad. The seats are pretty comfortable. No lumbar adjustment, which I always think is pretty nice. On a trim level this high, I mean, this is the Latitude. This is one of the higher trims, if not the highest trim they make in this. You'd kind of think they might have that, but they don't. But it's got 133,000 on it. And it really is no worse for wear as far as, you know, the condition that it's in. I showed you the outside. I can assure you all the fluids look great when I pulled them. I did a full fluid flush on this thing, basically every single fluid. They all looked great. It runs and drives great. So it's in pretty good shape, all things considered. And I do think that that's one of the benefits of these smaller cars sometimes, right? If you can keep the corrosion off of them, if you keep the rust off of them, this thing's very mechanically simple actually. Naturally aspirated 2.4 liter. Overhead cam motor, but nothing too crazy. Pretty tried and true design. No turbos. 5 or 6-speed transmission. You know, nothing crazy there. Pretty simple all-wheel drive system. And as a result, you know, the whole vehicle is like pretty, for a Jeep especially, I would say pretty reliable. And it's been pretty good. It's had all wheel bearings done at this point. Maybe except one, but I just had to do rears. And I did a front wheel bearing on it, like last year. Which isn't bad, that's very typical. But it's just so low power. And, you know, it's not hauling around a ton of weight or anything. And, you know, the vehicle itself is relatively light. It's just not beating itself up, you know. You take a half-ton truck and hook your camper to it over the summer, throw firewood in the bed. You know, it beats the truck up, right? Like, it's a lot of extra wear and tear. So these smaller cars sometimes, they just live a lot easier lives. And I do think that makes a big difference in their reliability. So, I mean, the worst thing this has going on is a little bit of a steering wheel shake because it's got a tire a little bit out of balance, but it needs new tires anyway. So that's pretty good for a car with 133,000 that's had minimal servicing. Actually, as I think about it, it did get some various like ball joints and tie rod ends before I was, with my girlfriend. She had a shop do all that. I looked at the cost of the parts, just saw the receipts. They didn't get her too bad on part cost or labor, so it's been a pretty cheap car for her to own for a good long while now. So that's good, right? That's what you want. Your average person just wants a good, cheap, reliable, relatively comfortable transportation. And that is the one thing where this does fall a little bit short. It's definitely not the most comfortable for like a long distance drive. The interior is kind of loud. It's a little bit bumpy. You can hear a lot of road noise. That's just kind of the case in any of these kind of, mid-grade, lower trim, or lower model line vehicles. This is comparable to a Chevy Blazer. They didn't make the Blazer back in 2014 like this, I don't think, but something that size, the old Escape, right, the Ford Escape. And they're all good for what they do, but none of them are going to be your premium driving experience, and nobody expects that, right? You don't expect a premium driving experience out of your Ford Escape necessarily. Now, obviously, as things get newer, the newest Ford Escape probably does give you that driving experience to a degree, just because everything's getting quieter and more powerful and all that kind of stuff, but it's also getting more expensive. And that's where something like this really shines, because, this was a $7,000 to $10,000 3-year-old used car back in the day, if not even less. And, it's no worse for wear 10 years later after she got it, basically. She got it a couple years old, I think. So that's pretty darn good in the big scheme of things. And if you're not somebody who's putting on huge amounts of miles, that's the other side of the coin, right? If you're only putting on 5,000 to 7,000 miles a year, let's say, you can get something to last a good long while. You're not going to blow through the mileage on it, so that's always a factor too. But super simple gauge layout, just a regular manual, radio deck, works perfectly fine. It's worked for the last 80 years until we had to make everything touchscreen. Although the touchscreens are fun, and I do like them. She's big into her CDs, which I laugh about. You've got cruise control. You've got your, I don't even know what the step button does, but stock-based wipers and everything and headlights. Just a very old school kind of mid-2000s, 2010s layout, but hey, it works. It does exactly what it needs to do. So you can cruise at 80, like we are right now, perfectly fine. It will bounce in and out of top gear, here and there, but it's not too bad. If you want, I believe, if you go over into manual mode, we can lock in 6th. Yeah, so if I sink it to the boards, or my foot's to the floor, it'll just leave 6th locked in. So that's kind of nice, right? If you don't want it to be gear hunting, you can just kind of pick 6th gear and say, all right, if I hit a big hill, don't let it downshift, and just hold that top gear for fuel economy reasons and just kind of keeping it from revving itself to the moon. So that's always nice. So we're going to set our cruise here. There we go. We're just going to cruise. We're going to see what it does. I'm going to leave it in 6th. We'll check back in on it later. So I did bump it into 5th just so I don't hold traffic up. People like to cruise here in upstate New York. If it's rush hour like it is right now, you better be doing your part. You're gonna get run over. But anyway, we're back in 6th and back in cruise, and then you can just hold this, and it cancels it and goes back into drive. That is very nice on a car like this with a little bit less powerful engine, because you can kind of lock out certain gears and keep it from gear hunting all the time and just pick a gear and cruise. It's also nice for if you really do want to set yourself up for a pass, because it doesn't have a ton of power, like on a 2-lane road. You can force yourself into the correct gear, get yourself lined up, really punch it and get around the car. Because, with this thing, you're going to want to use everything it's got, right? So that's a big benefit. So just little stuff like that, you can make a less powerful vehicle a little bit more pleasurable to drive. I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it. Like I said, I think it's just a good, average, everyday cruiser. These fall in that category of just like good, cheaper used cars. Now, I'll be honest, would Jeep be my preferred brand of a cheaper used car? Well, not necessarily, but you do pay a huge premium if you go for the like Honda, Toyota type cars. They definitely hold a premium on the used market, so that can be a negative, and you might not want to do that, just because of the initial purchase price. You can sometimes, if you're spending $3, $4, $5 used on something more, and maybe it has more miles, that's a lot of money you could just put toward repairs for a slightly less reliable vehicle. So different ways to look at that kind of stuff. But so anyways, guys, as always, thanks for watching. God bless America, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.